Hi friends, my name is Dr. Cathleen King and I'm the CEO and founder of the Primal Trust Academy Community. And I wanted to come here and make a video about how to deal with intense life stressors and trauma, as there's so much happening in the world right now, and my heart has just been full with so many of you reaching out asking for advice. What can I do? Things are really hard right now. These disasters have impacted my family. The wars in the world are really stressful. The political situation is stressful, and I know we can probably all agree that it feels like things are just are ramping up. And so I wanted to speak to this. I wanted to speak to how do we handle life stressors? How do we handle when trauma has happened and really difficult things have happened? And I know I can't speak perfectly about what it's like to be in a war-torn country. I've never experienced that, or a culture that's been very oppressed. Those are things I haven't experienced, but I can speak to having intense life stress, and I can speak to trauma. And I've worked with a lot of people, so I have some things to share. And first of all, I just want to set a context for what is trauma? What does it mean to have intense stress? And how do you even know if you're somebody who needs to be doing certain maybe practices and thinking about ways to address the stress in your system? So I'm going to go over that, and then I'm going to speak to what to do after you've gotten out of an acute trauma situation or an acutely dangerous situation, and how to process that in a way that helps your brain and body come back into homeostasis easier. And then lastly, I'm going to give several tips of what to do to help with ongoing intense stress, to help you slowly and safely discharge some of the built-up trauma that has been in your body. Some of you are, I'm sure most people are kind of familiar with what trauma is, but there's all kinds of trauma, big T traumas, little t traumas, and the way that it can impact us is very different from person to person. So I want to share with you a few of the main ways that we see intense trauma impact the body, and sometimes even small trauma that still impacts us intensely. There's a man that I like to learn from. His name is Pete Walker, and he describes 5 different ways where complex trauma affects us long term. And I also want to share a little bit from the polyvagal theory lens and just see if you recognize any of these traits in yourself. And before I go into the traits and before I go into what to do, I just want to say that if you recognize yourself in some of these traits, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Your body is adapting in the best way it knows how. I know for me personally, I've spent so many years feeling so much shame and regret about how I adapted from my traumatic upbringing, how I coped, and how my attachment styles were pretty dysfunctional. And so I just want to speak first of all that all of you, all of us, are doing the best we can with the resources we have, with the understanding we have. And for me, it really helped me to think about the millions of influences over many generations that led my family to behave the way they did to me, and the way that I behaved onward. There's so many influences that have caused us to behave the way we have. And sometimes we're like, I should know better. I shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't be so full of anxiety or upset or fear. Why can't I sleep? Why can't I calm down? If you could, you would. Your body is just trying to adapt, but there are strategies to help you. So first of all, and most importantly, is to meet yourself with compassion and start to have compassion for the person who has went through trauma and intense stress. It's hard. We are not resourced in our society. We are not taught these skills very well of how to discharge trauma. Our society is not, it doesn't have systems to help us process properly. And we're all in this together. And so I just want to say that. So what is trauma? Trauma is when something happens and it's too much too soon for your body to process and your brain to process. It's an overwhelm to the brain and the nervous system where the emotions, the situation, the experience basically gets trapped in your body on a cellular level and doesn't know how to complete its cycle, meaning the body, when you're experiencing something intense, it has instincts. It needs to fight, it needs to flee, it needs to hide, it needs to protect, it needs to shout, it needs to speak up for itself. It needs to overcome. And sometimes our body is in a situation where it can't. The forces are too great. And when that happens, the body gets frozen and it can't complete the natural cycle. And that need to run or to yell or to seek help kind of gets stuck. And then there are these constant alarm bells going off in the body, but we're trying to fix it in dysfunctional ways. We're trying to fix the trauma of the past in the present. We can't actually do that in the way that our brain is trying to get us to do this. So some of these patterns are dysfunctional, but it's our brain's way of trying to resolve the energy that is stuck inside of us. So Pete Walker describes 5 main ways that he sees this show up. And the first one is emotional flashbacks, which is where you're having visions of what happened. And a lot of times that's your brain trying to resolve it and prepare you from having it happen again by being reminded. And that can be a horrific experience. And I know I've dealt with that. And it can keep you up at night. It can cause night terrors. And so that's one of the patterns. And again, if you're having any of these patterns, I'm just sharing them with you so that you are aware that finding some type of stress discharge practice on a daily basis is important. The second thing that he talks a lot about is social anxiety. That, again, this is a protective mechanism after having trauma, that your psyche is like, let's not go and be social because we could get rejected because of this inner feeling that we have that we are not worthy, we're not lovable, we're not good enough. And so we often end up with having social anxiety, fear of being seen, fear of speaking in public, those kind of fear of intimacy, things like that. And the third thing, and maybe one of the hardest ones, is toxic shame, where you're just having this feeling stuck inside of you of shame, of I'm not enough, I'm inherently flawed, I'm broken. And the thing about shame is that it's an emotion that causes us to suppress who we really are. What would help us to heal is if we could get in touch with these emotions and let ourselves feel them and not believe the meaning behind it. Shame has a lot of built-in beliefs and meanings behind it that we tend to give our allegiance to, and we end up hiding our true self. So toxic shame, if you're experiencing that, is, it's another indicator that you've got some intense stress. Having a strong inner critic also is one of the main factors that happens when you've had a lot of intense trauma. And this inner critic is often trying to get us to be perfect and to get back into control. It's trying to solve the past, but it can't because the past is done. And it's trying to prepare you in the future to never have the past happen again, but it does it in a dysfunctional way. And then, lastly, it's a habit of self-abandonment, I guess is how I would say it, that we're neglecting ourselves when we've had a lot of intense trauma. We ignore our own needs because at some point our needs were not met. At some point we got the message that our needs were not important, and then we make our needs not important and we self-abandon. So these are all patterns that are important to be aware of and to seek help if you are experiencing any or all of these. And another thing to look for to know if you are dealing with trauma that's stuck in the body it would be through the lens of the polyvagal system, as coined by Stephen Porges. He describes a few different states that you can get stuck in. One of them would be freeze, where you might be going through the motions of your day, but you're bracing, you're armoring, you're often pretty tired, but you're still, showing up. You feel frozen inside. You're not full of vitality. It's sort of a feeling of wired and tired at the same time. So that's a sign that your body is asking for some help. Of course, if you're feeling shut down, hopeless, lethargic, overwhelmed, all of that is another state letting you know from the body lens that your body is having some difficulties discharging trauma. And then hypervigilance, having anxiety, insomnia, go, workaholic attitude, even overly ambitious can often be a trauma response that needs to be dealt with. So these are patterns, and what is the solution to life's intensity, life stressors? And First of all, I want to say, when you are stuck in the middle of something really significant, like maybe you're in the hurricane situation right now, or in a place with war or intense violence, the things I'm about to share with you are irrelevant, frankly, because those situations require you getting to safety and getting shelter and having food and resources. You can't discharge trauma and discharge stress when you're in an acute, dangerous situation. So, of course, if this is you right now, nothing I say right now is going to be relevant to you, and it's you need to find safety. And my heart goes out to so many of you who are literally in that situation right now around the world. I wish that there was more support. I wish that we had trauma consultants all over to help people process what's happening. And I hope that videos like this at least help to bring awareness. But that being said, the way that we heal is through connection to our body and connection to each other. That's really what creates safety. And I'm going to share with you some things here that help you come back into connection with your body. And that being said, it's important to also find resources to be in connection with others. That's another thing that's going on globally. We're getting disconnected from each other. We're on our phones maybe, but we're not with each other. We're arguing with each other. We're fighting each other. We can't agree to disagree. We're trying to prove who's right. All of that is perpetuating this worldwide trauma that we're all experiencing. It makes it difficult to discharge stress when we are so disconnected from each other, because we need to be in connection and co-regulation. So that being said, I can't solve the world disconnect, but I can help give each of you a few things to do to help you in the middle of dealing with the trauma processing. So the first thing I want to talk about is, if you've just had something dangerous happen or traumatic happen and you're out of that situation. So it's when you're out of the situation. So make sure that that is clear. This is after it has passed. One of the things about trauma is that the brain doesn't know the difference between past and present. It gets stuck as if it's happening now. The body literally feels like it's still having the trauma happen. So we have to attend to that feeling that it's still happening and show the body and show the brain that was then, this is now. So I want to use an example of what I've done with my kids, actually. So the situation that was dangerous, that was complete, was they were in a bad car accident. I also did this with them after a horse accident a few years prior, and that's kind of where I learned how to do this. I know that when you've had something traumatic and you've gone into shock, that the brain didn't process it. It was too much too quick. I know that it's important for the brain to slowly process what happened and to learn the difference between that happened then and I'm not there now. So what I do with my kids is I actually do a form of tapping while having them retell the story slowly, while I'm listening and empathizing, and then I bring them back to the present moment. And then I'll toggle them back to the story, and I'll tap on their body, and I'll kind of just demonstrate this in a moment, and then bring them back to the present. So we're going from the story to present, to help the brain understand the difference and also help their brain organize the information of what happened. So with the car accident, immediately I held them, of course, and let them know I was here. And then I said, what happened? And as they told me, I said, tell me everything in the order that you can remember. I tapped their body. I did the EFT tapping points, emotional freedom tapping points, which I'm demonstrating right now. While they told me, I tapped on them. If that seems weird and you don't want to do this, you can just kind of stay in your body like this, tapping your body like this, cupping your body, or stroking your body while slowly telling what happened or asking somebody what happened. And so I would ask them, tell me everything, and they'd describe what happened. I'm like, oh, what did your body do when you heard the loud noise? And they said, oh, I jolted forward. I'm like, show me kind of what that looked like. So I had their body retrace it, and then I'm tapping them while they're telling me. And I was like, what do you wish your body could do differently? And they're like, oh, I wish I could have braced better so I didn't hit the seat. And I'm like, show me what the body wanted to do. So I let the body do what it wanted to do. I had them demonstrate that all the while tapping them while they retold the story. And then I would say, okay, feel your feet, feel your hands, feel your body right now. Look around. Are you in the car right now? Is the accident happening? No. Can you feel your body right now? Is the accident happening right now? No. Okay, now let's go back. You tell me about the accident, and I tap them again. And of course, you know, this was to their tolerance. I highly recommend working with a therapist through something like this. I'm just giving you something to do if you're kind of on your own with your kids and something happens, or just even on your own. A little bit of advice of telling the story, staying in the body through some tapping to let it process, and then coming into the present moment. So you're connecting to the body, you're connecting to the story in the mind, and you're showing the mind that it passed, and now you're here. The car accident's passed, and now I'm here. This very scary thing is past, and now I'm here. That was then, this is now. That's an important statement when you're trying to heal from an intense situation. That was then, this is now. So anyway, I did that with my kids, and they are fine. They had no long-term effects. I did the same thing after a horse accident years ago, and they have zero fear, zero issue with it. And I think it's because we attended to the memory. We let the brain process it in sequence. We stayed in the body. We showed them present, and I was a compassionate witness. I listened, and I was like, gosh, that would have been scary. And, you know, I heard them. They had a regulated adult to process with. That's the key. And sometimes we need to try to be that for us if we're alone. Ideally, we're doing this with others. I think it's always best that we heal with others, but that would be something to do in an acute situation. Now I want to speak to things that you can be doing ongoing to discharge stress and that intensity when you're maybe in the middle of a difficult situation. Again, this is not advice if you're literally in the thick of a dangerous situation. You need to find some resourcing to get yourself out, and that is not the purpose of this video. But one of the things that I recommend doing when you are dealing with a lot of stress, intensity, is daily journaling and expressing how you're feeling. There's a lot of research behind doing expressive writing, which is where you write down everything you're thinking and feeling. It's a way of discharging the emotion so you don't start suppressing it and end up with body symptoms, nightmares, anxiety, etc. You're getting it out, everything you're thinking and feeling. And that's kind of like a purge, if you will, of what's happening. And you just need to do that a couple minutes a day. You know, just write and let it out. And then the other part of journaling that I think is important would be gratitude journaling. And doing that at the end of the day, that even though you have all of this difficulty going on, you're able to notice things that are going well. You're able to notice where you are being supported. You're able to notice where life is still happening and in a way that's supportive for you. So gratitude journaling, just write down a few things. There's a lot of research on this as well and how helpful it can be. So that's number one. Number two, and by the way, I don't expect you to do all of these things every day. I'm giving you a handful of things, what resonates. The idea is to pick something every day that's going to help you discharge stress. Just pick something, or maybe 2 or 3 things that I mentioned. Body care is the second thing. Your body needs to be nourished as best you can when you're under stress. You need to feed it well. Try to stay away from inflammatory foods, things that you know are taxing on the body. The body's already dealing with so much stress and cortisol and adrenaline and all the emotions. Why add that to the mix if you can stop it? I know some of us have food issues, and that's a whole other topic, and it might be hard. But if you can, and you know you're going through stress, it's important to feed your body well and hydrate your body and move your body. And giving it sunlight, keeping your circadian rhythm up. Get up and see the sunlight in the morning, dim your lights at night. You want to think about treating your body like a newborn baby when it's going through a lot of stress. How would you treat a newborn baby? What kind of environment would you have it in? What kind of music and lighting? Would you have the news blaring, showing scary scenes all the time? Would you be constantly complaining with your friends and getting feedback of all the terrible things going on? Or would you hush all of that and come back into your home and just try to reground and center? That's what you would do for your body. The other thing that I really love for the body when you're going through stress is stretching. Fascia stretching, yoga, tai chi, any kind of normal stretching, because our fascia holds a lot of our emotion. A lot of the trauma is actually held in our fascia. And as we stretch the fascia in different ways, it can be just gentle or as intense as you can handle. It helps to discharge that built up emotion. It helps to discharge trauma. And we know that it's stuck in the fascia. It helps to improve our cellular communication, our organ function. It helps to improve our meridian flow, our endocrine flow. Stretching is so important. You might not have a lot of energy to exercise. Stretch in your bed. There's a lot of apps to learn how to stretch. You can Google gentle stretching, yin yoga, whatever suits you to help to discharge that energy. So body care would be another one. The other one, I made some notes, of course, vagus nerve toning. Exercises for the vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is like your muscle that helps you to discharge stress. It helps you to go into rest and digest and repair. There's so many ways of exercising this nerve that helps your nervous system. One simple one is literally just humming to yourself and singing to yourself, alternating hot cold in the shower, getting sunlight. You can Google vagus nerve exercises and you'll find lots of them, and they're all over YouTube and Instagram and all of that. The thing that I like teaching people how to do is something I'll show you right now. It's called the near-far gaze and the figure 8 method. These are 2 eye yoga practices that really help to target the vagus nerve and send messages of safety to your limbic system. So the first one would be, if you're feeling a lot of stress, get outside if you can, like I am right now, and look at the horizon. Just look around. I'm seeing this beautiful sunset. It's just gorgeous. And just slowly turn your head side to side and just scan and notice the bigger world, the clouds, the reflection of the light, or look out the window if you can't get outside. That's going to help you get a different framework, a different point of view. When we're in trauma and intense stress, we're microscopic. We're right here, right now, trying to survive. If we can look up, look around, and see that right now, there's nothing dangerous happening. Right now, I am okay. That's going to help us to discharge some of the stress if we make a habit of doing that throughout the day. The other thing that I recommend is something called a figure 8. I teach this in my program, where you basically are staring at your thumb and you're slowly making a figure 8 pattern while watching it with your eyes, and my head is staying still. I'm going very slowly and just, this is called a smooth pursuit. Now this seems silly, but it actually sends signals of safety to your limbic system, because when we're in stress, our eyes dart back and forth, and we actually have a lot of quick eye movements. When you slow your eye movements down, it's a way of changing the processing of your brain and sending signals that right now I'm in safety. So just tracing that with your eyes. So those are 2 eye exercises. The next thing would be somatic presencing. Now, like I said, the most important thing when we are healing is getting back into connection with our body and connection with each other. Trauma, intense stress, and all the programming in the world right now is trying to get us to separate from our bodies, from each other. So this is the biggest part of healing, is coming back into the body and coming back into self. So there's a practice called somatic practices, somatic presencing, and a concept called interoception. Interoception, which is your ability to perceive what's happening inside of your body. And the way that you practice this is several times a day, just dropping, contacting your body and say, body, I'm here. I'm right here, body. I like to say this, body, I choose to be here right now. Body, I'm choosing to be here right now. I feel my belly, I feel my chest. Because when you are in trauma, you want to get out of your body. So we're saying, I choose to come back. Body, I love you. I love you, and I want this to be a safe place. I'm going to keep working on helping this to feel like a safe place. So just attuning to the body, talking to the body. Also connecting to your environment, noticing the beautiful plants around you, feeling the textures of the rocks, looking around. You're connecting to the beauty around you. That's also going to help to improve your somatic awareness. And then interestingly, they have shown in study that self-compassion turns on a part of our brain called our anterior insula, and it helps this part of our brain, our insula, is what's responsible for our mind-body connection and our gut instinct, our feeling of needs. And so literally when you are going through it, like so many of us are, just meeting ourselves with compassion, I'm here, I am so sorry, this has been so hard, I'm here and I love you, and just supporting yourself. It's hard to have this anxiety, it's hard to have this insomnia, it's hard to have these coping strategies. It's been hard, and I acknowledge that that's been difficult, and I feel compassion for myself for how difficult it has been. So talking to the self, that really discharges a lot of the shame, and it helps to get this insular mind-body connection back online. And when that happens, you guys, you're going to start to discharge energy, and you're going to start to discharge emotion, and you might have uncomfortable feelings come up. And that's something else I want to bring. When you start doing trauma healing, and this is why this video is so not a substitute for trauma healing. So I'm saying that right now. Trauma healing is a long journey, and it's best to be working with a therapist, a coach, a guide, a mentor. Because as you start meeting your body, you're going to have intensity come up. And that's why, you know, in my work, I don't even teach people how to do a lot of this trauma healing until, you know, after months of doing other practices. And so I'm giving you a heads up. When this energy, when old wounding and alarm bells start to like come up and out as you start doing some of this practice, you might notice that you have certain distraction and coping strategies that pop up, like binge eating or binge watching Netflix, or sometimes even substance abuse. Any type of dopamine hit. That's your protector system trying to keep you safe from that old energy. And you've got to meet that and say, okay, protector, I feel this distraction coming. I feel this urge to go escape and to get out of my body, but I want to feel what's here. I want to discharge this energy. I want to heal from this. And if it's too much right now and you need to do this with someone else, then just say that, like, okay, I've got too much coming up. I'm going to work with a therapist, a coach, or a friend to help me be presencing what's coming up right now. So just know that some of this is hard to do on your own. It sure was for me. I couldn't do it on my own. But doing simple things of just saying, body, I'm here now. Just doing that a little bit throughout the day, that's going to help. So interoception practices. And then the last couple things that I want to say is obviously getting back into connection. And one of the most important things that I think that we need to do when we get back into connection is to grieve. Grief is something that we often have so suppressed in our system, and it's one of the most important things that we need to go through, the grieving process, to discharge the toxins that are in our body, to discharge the shame, the guilt, the anger, the regret. And that happens best, frankly, in community. And we are not set up very well for grieving in community, are we? But there are groups out there, and I can think of one. I'll put a link in the notes below this. Getting involved even in our community and making friends, and just getting connected with each other, and knowing that you might have a journey of grieving to go on. And sometimes we grieve by ourselves, and learning about that, and sometimes, and ideally, we grieve with others so that we're seen, heard, and witnessed. That was a mouthful, and like I said, you just pick, every day, just pick one of those things. Say, okay, I'm going to work on discharging some of this energy. And again, I just want to send my compassion out for all of you who really are in an intense situation. I'm obviously not. I'm in Utah. Nothing crazy is happening here. I can't imagine what it's like in North Carolina right now and other parts of the world. And all I can do is my part in educating you guys on some tools and practices, and encouraging that we stay in connection with each other, that we call our friends up who we know are having a hard time and saying, hey, do you want me to just hear what's going on? Do you want me to just hold space for you while you practice being in your body? We need to connect with each other. I have other free resources if you want to learn more about nervous system work and this process of regulation. And we also do things like brain retraining, which I didn't touch on today. I have a free resource on my website, primaltrust.org, and it's a book called How Healing Happens. Under the free resources, it's got a lot of the science and several practices also on my Primal Trust Instagram channel and my YouTube channel. We also have lots of tips and tricks and things like that. And of course, we have a whole community where we have a program and slowly walking you through this process of gaining nervous system tools, learning about trauma, and learning how to slowly discharge trauma. But I hope this video was good awareness for those of you who maybe don't know a lot about trauma or don't have the skills to deal with a lot of what's happening right now. And I just encourage that we all try to stay connected as much as we can. You know, say hi, be friendly to people that you pass on the street. Let's try to reconnect and not be so isolated, because ultimately that's what's going to heal the world, is coming back into connection with each other. So thank you for listening, and be well.